In here, is that okay? I got
That's
it on
fine.
my computer. Okay.
You can move a little.
Mike, you could pass these around. Sure. Let me talk about two things today. The first one is a project that I became involved in and our club is sponsoring. It's a global grant to build a community filter in Trojes, Honduras. I first got introduced to pure water from a member of our club, Doug Hinkle, who's actually on the board of Pure Water where I actually just came off the board. But he had been to Honduras, I think 18 times to do filter projects down there, and I expressed some interest in doing that. So last October, I went down to Honduras for a week and spent some time down there working with them, installing biosand filters in the village of Trojes. Trojes, Tegucigalpa is the major city in Honduras. We flew into Tegucigalpa and then traveled 110 miles to Trojes, which is a community of about 6,000 people. It's only 110 miles. If you did that here, it'd take you a couple hours. There, it took us actually, we stopped in Don Lee overnight and then traveled on. The roads are so bad there. This is just a map of kind of that area. This was produced by Pure Water. Shows locations of some of the residents out in the hinterlands and kind of what's considered again the town of Trojes here, which is the more densely populated area in that vicinity. So every day we got up in the morning, and of course, kind of an aside here, you've all been hearing about Honduras a lot in the news lately. It's a very poor country. Conditions down there are not good. There's a lot of crime. About 67–80% of the population lives under the poverty level. Most kids don't complete more than 6th grade. It's very difficult to go to high school there. They have local elementary schools that the kids can walk to, sometimes a couple hours to walk to school, but it's very expensive and difficult to get your kids to the very limited number of secondary education facilities that they have. So every day we got, our group got in these pickup trucks, in the back of pickup trucks, and we would travel 1.5 to 2 hours up into the mountains to install biosand filters in individual properties. And this is kind of what the area looks like. It's very hilly, very mountainous. Roads are very poor, mostly dirt, a lot of washouts and that kind of thing. And when we got to where we could park the truck, often we had to walk as much as a half a mile from the road to get up to the huts or homes where we were going to install the filters, and sometimes had to cross the streams and go up hills.
What is that?
Challenging.
What is that up on the stick? Is that electrical wiring?
This,
Yeah, what is that? If you know.
you know, and now that you ask me that, I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know. I think it might actually be a water pipe. Because what some of the people have done is they'll tap into a spring or something upstream from their home with a 1-inch or 1.5-inch PVC line, and to bring the water down to their house. Other than that, they have no latrines, no sanitary facilities, no pure water, that kind of thing. So yeah, good question. I forgot about that. So this is a kind of a typical kitchen in one of these adobe huts. They have no windows, no doors. I mean, they have openings, but no, way to close them off. The, climate is such that they don't really have to. And they build their homes themselves out of mud and sand and a little bit of Portland cement. Most of them are cooking on a stove like this. This one is what's fairly sophisticated because it actually vents to the outside. Most of them don't. So they've got a lot of soot inside their living quarters. And these are the filters that we were installing. Just trying to give you a little background. The filters that we were installing last year, and they put about 4,000 of these in Honduras. Pure Water Honduras has, and these are biosand filters. They start out with a very coarse material in the bottom, then a finer material and a really fine material in the top. And the residents can use these. They pour their untreated water in through the top, usually through a piece of cloth or something to filter it out. And what happens is this is no chemicals involved here. This is a biosand filter. So after about 2 weeks, you start getting good bacteria that develops in the filter, and that takes care of the pathogens and the bad stuff in the water. They don't have chemical contamination, but they have E. coli and a lot of parasites in their water. And a lot of E. coli comes from both human contamination and the wildlife that's in the area, a lot of cattle and that kind of thing. And these are very sustainable. Without chemicals, these biosand filters can last 20 years with minimal maintenance and supply enough water for a family of 5 or 6 people. Typically, that's what lives in one of these dwellings. And then they're stored in a safe container here. So we would bring the material in, assemble the filter, then we would have to test it. Sometimes we would have to adjust the ratios of the sand and stuff to get the proper percolation rate. And then one of the days that we were there, we visited a school and helped build a latrine. These are the kids going to this school. It's open air school, no electricity, no visual aids, very rudimentary desks and other equipment. This was one of the local residents that was helping us, well, we were really helping them build the latrines. They had already, were just completing digging 2 of these large pits that the latrines would empty into, seepage pits. And it was amazing how round, perfectly round these guys could get these pits, just hand digging them.
How deep, how high over his head is
It's
that
about
valve?
10 feet deep.
Wow.
Dug by hand. What our crew came and did is we constructed the concrete covers for these. We mixed all the concrete, had to carry it down the hill. There were 2 of these pits, and then an access cover, which was also constructed out of concrete, and then assembled the vent pipe. So that was kind of our chore for the day there. And this is kind of a shot of not quite finished latrine. Here's most of our group in front of it after the doors and things have been installed. There's a boys and ladies section, and the pits are about 50 feet away down the hill. So, you know, the material goes out into the soil and it's purified that way. So while I was there, I found out, it was one day we finished a little early, and the people from Pure Water Honduras took us on a little tour of some of their other water facility that they had in Trojes in this neighborhood called 21D Fabrio, and I'm for sure I'm pronouncing that right. But what they had done in that area, they had constructed a series of water tanks out of concrete. Here's another one up here. I forget the exact gallonage. I think this is like a 3,000 gallon tank. And these tanks collect water that's just coming off the hillside from springs and a stream upstream, and is stored there in order to, you know, give some reliability for the water source, because sometimes it's dry and sometimes it's wet, so it gives them a buffer of storage. And what they're doing now is they're actually, you know, just chlorinating this water, which technically makes it safe to drink, but it still has a lot of turbidity, it has a lot of organic matter in the water. And because of the high turbidity, it requires a much more chlorine to make it safe, because the bacteria tend to feed on the particles, organic particles that are in the water. It makes the demand for chlorine higher, and it's harder to make safe to drink. And it's also looks and tastes terrible. So while we were here, we found out, while I was here, found out about a project they wanted to do there. Actually, this is the only picture I have of it. This is the director, Maria, the director of Pure Water Honduras, where they wanted to build a community filter. This is an image kind of looking from the filters kind of down, and this is the community that would be serviced by the community filter. You can see the living conditions are not, you know, outstanding there. Those water tanks that I showed you pictures of service about 1,575 people in 263 homes, and 1 school that's serviced by that water system. And there's 580 children that attend that school. So they did, so after I came back from Honduras and I was interested in the project, I spoke to them a little bit about what it would take to get it moving. Of course, funds are very limited. And then I started going to some of the district and international conference, learning more about global grants and the magic of global grants. I don't know if your club's ever done one, or if anybody in here has ever been involved in a global grant. But, you know, the way they work, they're district-directed funds that our district has that they can dedicate towards a project. Those funds can be matched by RI. Money that our club raises is then matched by RI. So you can really multiply the effect of any donations we get. And they needed about $70,000 to build this project. So I've initiated, and I'm almost complete with the grant application with RI. I'm still waiting for a couple of pieces of technical information from our partners in Honduras. Then I'll be able to complete the global grant application and submit it to RI. And there's another outfit called the Wash Rag, which is a Rotary Action Group based on wash and hygiene that will also submit the grant application to. When they review it, after they've had a chance to review it, they will also donate $500 towards the project, which will then be matched. As part of the global grant process, there's a community assessment that's required. So the community was surveyed about, you know, their needs, what they're doing with the water, their willingness to pay a little bit extra for it, because even once this system is put in, there will be some maintenance required ongoing. So what they found that you know, 100% of the people in the community are willing to pay a little more for better water, and what their expectation was for better quality, that was the primary one, better quantity, and then, you know, the frequency and of use and stuff, that was a little less important. Again, going back to turbidity, the high turbidity level is about 95 NTU, and I kind of looked up what NTU was, but it's a measure of turbidity, and the higher the number is, the worse it is. And for most water systems, you want something like 1 to 5 is acceptable in most municipal water systems for NTU. And the E. coli count was 194, and as you know, E. coli count of 0 is what, you know, we really need to have. You don't want any E. coli in your water. What they also found out during the survey is that a lot of people weren't storing their water in safe containers. They're outside, they're not covered, so they're drawing water from this municipal system, in some cases storing it for the times when, you know, the system's unreliable and can't provide water, but they're not necessarily storing it in safe containers. You know, things we take for granted like hand washing and dishwashing and proper sanitation and hygiene. You know, some of these people have not grown up in that environment, so there's a real need for education for people about basic hygiene and sanitation and how to manage that. Like I said, 45% of people weren't storing their water in safe containers, and 70% of people were drinking water right from the tap without any additional boiling or processing or filtration. So in addition to building this filter that we're talking about, and I got an image of that coming up, the families are going to be trained for safe storage of water, hygiene. One of the big things with young women is menstrual hygiene. A lot of girls don't go to school when they get their period. There isn't the availability of products like we have here. So there's a real need for education there. And then the water board will be trained in sustainability and maintenance operation of the multi-stage filter. And the construction of the filter is going to be supported by local residents who are willing to contribute some of the labor to do it. You know, some of the excavation, mixing of the concrete, just like with the latrines. The community is willing to give their you know, own sweat and time to bring this project to fruition. This is an image of the filter. Sorry, it's kind of tiny, but basically this is how the thing would work. There's an intake where the stream or spring that comes into the system would be the initial catchment. There's basically a settling basin where the largest particles and sand are trapped. Then there's a coarse filter, which does some primary filtration. And then there's what's called a slow sand filter, which is a very fine sand. And all these filters have baffles and whatnot to kind of slow down you know, the movement of water to maximize the filtering process. And then it would go out to the storage tanks and on to the residents. And one of the advantages of this is that there will be minimal, if any, chlorination required once this is up and running. And it's a very sustainable system, requires no chemicals and no energy. There's no electricity required to manage this, and no chemicals needed in this part of the process, other than maybe some supplemental chlorine just before it goes out to the homes. The grant is targeted at raising $70,000, which translates to about $45 per person who is going to be benefiting from this. And that will provide them with clean water for decades to come. This is not a kind of one and, you know, just only a year project or whatever. This is will provide long-term sustainability for these people for clean water. So I think that's pretty good payback, $45 a person. District 7190, our district, I kind of lobbied with them for support on this, and they have committed out of their district directive funds $19,730 towards this project. That amount will be matched by RI, because the district directive funds are matched one-on-one by RI, so that gets us close to $40,000. In addition to that, I've had some support from some other clubs, our club, some personal donations, and clubs in Florida, Vermont, Illinois, and Colorado. Some of these clubs that had previous experience with pure water or been on one of the trips like I was on, so they have, you know, some knowledge of what they do down there and want to support it. So where we're at right now is we have about $62,000 of the $70,000 we need. So, you know what, and what's raised by the clubs here locally is, in a sense, our district is already matching, giving us this amount whether or not we raise it or not. So in a sense, they're matching it. I need to raise another $6,000 to get this project off the ground. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to, you know, have you guys think about it. I've given you a flyer which has contact information on it, and I think it's a very good project. The district obviously felt it was worthwhile because they dedicated, you know, the $19,700 committed towards the project. So we'd sure like to see this thing. I'd like to get all the money together by the end of February so the project will go in the spring. And if it does, my intention is to go back to Honduras next fall to see the completed project, and then I can report back to people on how it went and bring some pictures and that kind of thing. But I think it's a very worthwhile project. I know when I was down there, the Honduras people that we worked with, the people receiving the filters, were very appreciative and cooperative and very happy to be getting, you know, the individual filters, and this community really needs this. So your club can talk about it. You know, like I say, you can contact me. My contact information is on the sheet, or if you want to make a personal donation, that would be appreciated as well. So, and I think there's actually a link on our club website where you can make a donation, you know, with a credit card. So I think that's kind of the gist of it. Yes, that's the gist of that. So that's it. Any questions on that? I did that kind of quick. This is actually the first time I gave the presentation, so it was probably a little choppy if I apologize.
That was good.
Fine.
That is fine. My question, I've been through global grant training, so I know the outline
Yeah.
of how it's supposed to work. How are you handling the issue of having a Rotary Club on the ground nearby?
Yeah, we have a partner club.
Okay.
Actually, the director of Pure Water Honduras, Maria, is a member of the Tagusa Golf Club, so she's a Rotarian too, so that helps. So the Don Lee Club, which is about 50 miles from the site where this is going to take place, is our host. We're considered an international partner, they're the host. So we're working with the Don Lee Club. There have been committee members selected there that will be overseeing the project. I haven't been through the whole process yet, but you know, we set up a separate bank account we're putting the money into. Once the grant is approved and RI funds are available, there'll be a whole process of documentation, that the money, you know, with bills and invoices and everything before the money can be released. We don't just send $70,000 to Honduras and hope they use it for what they say they're going to use it for. You know, it's a very tightly controlled process by the Rotary Foundation.
I think
so.
some of us have been through the training and we've seen the paperwork.
Yeah, it's a little onerous, but it's not impossible. It's not, you know, the application is not that bad. One of the challenges for me is that most of the information I can't provide directly because I'm not there and I don't know that, so I have to keep asking the people on Honduras to feed me information so that I can put it into the
It's
application.
very dependent on the host club to do what they're supposed to do.
Right, that's always a challenge, right, yeah, that's a challenge. So they have to follow through, there's certain paperwork and things that they have to get done in order to make, you know, get the money released, so. It's a bit of a challenge, but when I went down there and when I saw the project, I kind of made a personal commitment to myself to see if I could get this project done for them. So, because I was so impressed with the team down there and what they were doing. So, yes.
Kirk, a couple questions. You hear in the news, obviously, recently about all the excessive violence and whatnot in Honduras, Guatemala, that area. Curious, being there yourself personally, I mean, do you see any?
I didn't
experience of
see
that?
anything myself, obviously. We had about 24 people. They picked us all up at the airport in a bus. They took us we stayed in, Donley the first night, and Trojes the other nights, and Donley again on the way back. We weren't allowed to leave our hotel. We had to stay in a group all the time. We walked to a restaurant for breakfast. We had to all go together. We didn't have armed guards or anything like that, but we weren't, like I said, when we were out working, it was fine. Out in the villages and stuff, we were in our small groups, but when we were in town, once we got to the hotel, it was a gated thing. They closed the gate and we weren't allowed to leave. So, you know, they've never had an incident with the pure water groups, other than people having some diarrhea or something because they made a mistake and brushed their teeth with the water, or, you know, got some in their mouth while they were showering or something.
What do you do to protect yourself from that, from water, food, or pathogens?
You know, it's all bottled water. You just drink bottled water. When you're in the shower, you keep your eyes closed and your mouth closed. And when you brush your teeth, you do it with bottled water. You rinse your toothbrush with bottled water. You know, we stayed in a little motel in Trojes, and the sewer system is very poor in these countries too. So, you know, you can't put toilet paper down in the toilet. You have to put it in a wastebasket next to the toilet. You know, so there's always things you know, you don't want to walk around bare feet. You know. So everybody was fine, nobody got sick. They had very few instances of that because they kind of drill that into us while we're there. So,
I just wanted to comment, 13 years ago, I went on a water project. We went to El Salvador, but we also went over the border to Honduras to visit some places that had clean water filters installed. And it took us to well, it's not really a hospital, but it's sort of like a community health center, and showed us some graphs of what it was like before pure water, with huge number of cases of diarrhea and
Yes,
those
thank you.
kind of
Yeah.
illnesses, and then after maybe 1 or 2 a month.
yeah, they've seen that here too. They track that. We actually had one of our dinners down there, a local doctor, come talk to us about, you know, the reduction in the incidence of diarrhea and intestinal problems, you know, that were preventing kids from getting to school, people from going to work. A lot of the people in this area work in the tobacco or coffee bean industry. You know, they have a small plant, or they work for somebody else, or they might have a little bit of land they're growing coffee beans on. They collect it, bring it to the co-op. And you can't work if you've got dysentery or diarrhea, you know. So, pure water is, you know, something these people really need, you know. I mean, they're very self-sufficient otherwise in a lot of ways. They live in a, you know, beautiful jungle, but...
And it's hot and you get thirsty.
Yeah, we were there in October, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
We were there in
nice.
February.
Yeah, yeah. So, any other questions?
Just roughly, how much of the water is for drinking as opposed to cooking or bathing?
You know, I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't have those statistics. Yeah.
Because you would think that drinking would be a very high priority,
Yeah,
given
yeah.
all the things you just said.
right, yeah, for drinking and cooking, so what they
Yeah.
really need to, you know. What we found is hand washing, you can wash your hands with the dirty water, as long as you use antibacterial soap. That's fine, you can wash with it, you know, shower with it, so. Any other questions on the water project? I have one other short presentation too, yeah.
Betty and I are well familiar with Pure Water for the World over many years, and we would like to commit a personal donation toward this project. If anybody would like to join us, we'll all come from Albany Rotary.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that at our
Yeah,
board meeting next.
yeah, I wouldn't expect you to commit to this, yeah.
See what we can squeeze together.
Yeah, as my understanding is the district hasn't had a lot of global grants. So there was actually, they did give us a 19, but they actually had, prior to making that commitment, I think $56,000 in district directed funds that hadn't been distributed for global grants. So, you know, they're anxious to get involved in it.
Just a few more minutes.
All right, this will be really quick.
Okay.
If some of you went to either any of the district training events, the district conference, the Skidmore training last spring, you've heard more and more about the opioid crisis and how Rotary's trying to get a little bit involved in that and see what the clubs and individuals can do to kind of do something about the opioid crisis, either prevention or recovery or whatever. So our club earlier this year got in contact with a group called Second Chance Opportunities. They're a not-for-profit organization in Albany, and what they do is they help people who are coming out of recovery from addiction, and it can be opioids, it could be alcohol, and they help them rebuild their lives. They give them a place to live, because what happens is a lot of times people go on these 5-week programs after being addicted. They come out, you know, they're technically clean, and 2 days later they're back on the street. They're using again because they don't have a job, they don't have any support, they don't have any money, they don't have a place to live. So they provide people with a place to live. They give them jobs in the janitorial services. They run a janitorial service. They have contracts with state agencies, police departments, whatnot. So these people get back on their feet, they're doing a job, they're getting paid. Once they get a little money saved up, they charge them a little bit of rent. They help them get a car, they help them get their license back, they help them write resumes to get other jobs. They do a lot of wonderful work to get people back on their feet. And they have about 50 employees, about 45 of them, of which are recovering addicts. So they do great work, and we decided we wanted to do a fundraiser for these people. They have just purchased a building on Colvin Avenue, and they want to open a community recovery center, which would be a place where people can go and get community support, where families of recovering addicts can go with their family member and do fun activities together without substances being involved, and just get the community support and whatnot. So there's a little more about what they're planning there. They have very big plans for what this community center is going to provide for the recovery community. Myself and another person in our club have been going to a lot of there's a Friends of Recovery group in Albany. We've been going to a lot of their meetings, meeting people who have lost loved ones, who have been addicts themselves and are now counselors. Really has opened my eyes up a little, because I've lived a very kind of sheltered life in terms of drugs and alcohol. So we're planning an event to support them, raise money on January 26th, and it's, pass those out. We're calling it the Amazing Race to Recovery. It's going to be across Gates Mall, and it's going to be based on the television program The Amazing Race, if you've ever seen it. The Amazing Race show, people go from country to country performing all these challenges, and it's an elimination competition. And so what people are going to do is sign up as teams, come to the mall that day, and they'll go from store. We have about 12 different retailers that have agreed to participate in this, and they'll go into those establishments and do some kind of challenging task. Part of this they'll be learning about Shelter Box. That'll be one of the things they have to do, is go learn about Shelter Box and take a quiz about it. There'll be another station where they have to watch a video about Rotary and answer questions about it to move on to the next challenge. So we're also using this not only to build awareness and raise money for the opioid and addiction crisis, but also build some awareness of Rotary. And we're going to be allowed to have up to 20 tables in the mall. We have some of the recovery groups, Hope House, the National Guard, Anti-Drug Task Force, other people that are kind of helping with the event and going to have tables throughout the mall. So what clubs is, one, get the word out. If you've got a Facebook, you can go to our event website, our event Facebook page, share it with your friends, contacts, to help us get the word out about the event. And we would encourage, we're hoping that a lot of the Rotary clubs will form some teams and come and participate. It's $20 a person to participate. It should be a really fun day. We're hoping to get some good media coverage during the event. It's a very public event because it's in the mall. A lot of our Rotary events are kind of closed things. We have them too, the wine pairings, the silent auctions, but it's mostly Rotarians there. And we're hoping to get, a lot of people that aren't Rotarians involved in participating in this. So we have a number of non-Rotarians already that have volunteered to help us. We also need some additional volunteers for the day of the event. Because we're going to have, we've got to have at least 2 judges at each venue. We need some floaters, we need people for registration, we need people for setup and takedown. In addition to when the contest part of it is over, and while we're tabulating the results, we're also going to have a community forum at Lucky Strike Social in their that big room where they did the Rotary's Got Talent, if any of you went to that. And we're going to have a community forum there for about an hour, after which we'll give the awards and do that, and the program will end about 2 o'clock.
Cool.
So that's my spiel on that. If you could read that over. I think it's going to be a really fun event and a really great opportunity to make a difference in some people's lives and also get some really great exposure for Rotary. And trying to get the other clubs in the district to kind of chime in, because we're going to be marketing to a pretty broad market, outside of just our club. So everybody in Rotary can benefit, I think, from that. So
Cool.
I appreciate you coming today.